Welcome back, my friends, for episode 30 of Beyond Bricks and Mortar. Hard to believe it's been 30 episodes, but it feels like we're just getting started. Now, back in week 18, I did what I'm now considering to be part one of an interesting series of conversations with agents who are in their first year in real estate. Now, as we all know, there's a tremendous amount of content and features and TV shows and everything that shows the glitz and the glam of our business, most of which is done in the context of those who have been in the industry for a long time, who have value to add to the audience, but also can inspire the next generation of the audience to come into this business. Now, the other side of that conversation is that majority of real estate agents that enter the business just don't realize what it actually takes to succeed. And I find that there's very little out there that's actually tailored to first-year real estate agents. So we're going to keep this little series going with part two. Today, I'm joined by Ofier Sarfaty. Ofier, also less than a year into her real estate journey, is a member of my team. And just yesterday, in fact, Ofier listed her first listing after only a few months in the business for $1.5 million. She also has another listing coming up just after Labor Day, which will be listed for $2.5 million. But what I think is really important to note is the fact that in order to just get to those two listings, Ofier had to make over 1,000 calls, pedal to the metal every day, pushing and pushing, nourishing her network, making phone calls, trying to create opportunities until eventually, finally landing on these two. And this is just a small sequence of what it takes to actually reach success. A few months to get these listings is a really short period of time, and it shows the extra mile you really need to go to get to that moment in time. Me personally, it took me about 5 years to start making real money and succeeding in this business. Of course, a few deals being done here and there along the way, but until my network started to actually feed me, it was a tremendous amount of time. Now, I devote a great deal of that to the fact that I did not join a team early in my real estate career. I really chose to do things independently for the first 3 years. And I realize now, a bit later in my career, that if I would have taken those first 3 years to get a little bit closer in the world of mentorship, to align myself with more people who can really help me accelerate my success a bit more, that maybe things would have happened a little bit faster. And so now my mission as a leader is to accelerate the success of those that work with me, helping them get there just a little bit faster than if they were on their own. And so, from a seasoned real estate agent to a new one, in this episode, Ofier will be asking the questions. If you are new here, welcome. If you're new to real estate, welcome. This is the right episode for you. And it's actually part two. So sit back and relax and enjoy the show, and be sure to hit that like and subscribe and all the buttons, everything I tell you guys to do all the time. But now, without any further ado, part two, episode 30. Here she is, Ofier Sarfaty. Good. Welcome.
Thanks.
What is up?
I'm excited to be here.
I love doing this format of this podcast. I did it once with Maya, but lately I've been doing a lot of no prep as it relates to these conversations. But I think, when I think about an episode like this, the sort of overarching objective of it all is to add value to people who are new to our business.
Yep.
To people who are really considering making the jump into our business. I've been doing this for about 13 years. It's been brutal for most of those years. It's very difficult to create and then to sustain success, especially as your life continues to evolve and you start to build a family and you have children, and then there's all kinds of expenses that come with it. There's a lot of opportunity to share with people what it's really like to take that journey. And so reversing this in a way that you can ask the questions based on what you have experienced thus far, what you're curious about, what's next for you, and how I can add value to you in this forum for other people to hear, I think is fulfilling. It's a fulfilling context for me. I find like I'm really interested in doing so much more of this at this stage of my career. It's just helping new agents take that, sort of accelerated step in their career by just learning and knowing from the journey of someone else on an intimate level.
Totally. And I think that was one of the first things we discussed when we hopped on a call and introduced ourselves to each other. You explained that this is what you do. You like to take on new agents, and this is a passion of yours, and you like to see them grow, and you understand that there's different pain points and an evolution process there, and you actually enjoy that journey. So for me, when I was looking to join a team, and I was only looking to join a team, I was not going into this industry on my own. You were one of the first conversations I had. And I remember hanging up the phone, and I looked at my husband. I was like, Evan, I'm going to work with Ariel.
I'm honored.
I was like, it's happening.
But how many teams did you talk to?
I spoke to a few. I definitely spoke with a few.
Did you speak to a few outside of SERHANT as well?
Yeah.
I'm curious, what drew you to SERHANT as opposed to another shop?
I think, well, one, it's an industry disruptor. You know what I mean? They're doing it differently. We're doing it differently than anybody else. I think the three elements of the company really, really attracted me. So the real estate, obviously, the sell it, the whole coursework that Ryan takes the time to do and really train us and give us all the tools we need to really, really succeed. And then studios. We just do it differently than everybody else. And having those three aspects, those three, I guess, departments, call them, to the company, it's, it's advantageous being here.
Yeah, those are the exact elements that kind of brought me over after 9 years at another firm, at a firm that's rested at the top for a really long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, at a certain point, it feels too long, and it's time to do something new, something that represents an evolution in our business. SERHANT's a really good example of that. Like you said, an industry disruptor. Mm-hmm. They really do things differently than most firms, not just from a process standpoint, but from a culture standpoint as well. It's a far less buttoned up corporate environment. It's a lot more free-spirited and supportive of our individual creativity.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciate.
I have nothing to compare it to. So I've never been at another real estate broker. I have nothing to compare to, but I can see what my colleagues are saying about it and the difference between joining SERHANT and how that's been for them. So I am very confident I ended up exactly where I need to be to succeed.
Okay. Amen. I love it. All right. So how can I help?
Okay. Let's jump right into it.
Tell me.
The National Association of Realtors found that 75% of realtors fail within their first year of being in the industry, and 87% after their first 5 years. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see agents make in their first year? And how do I, or we, whoever's listening to this, avoid failure as a new agent?
Great question out the gate. Actually, I did an episode with Matthew Scott. Do you know him?
Yes.
He's a fantastic SERHANT agent, and we become friends through this forum. But I asked him, I said, what is the biggest mistake that real estate agents are making now? And his answer, which rolled right off the tongue, was playing small, thinking small. You have to think big picture, big perspective. You have to realize what you're actually capable of. Now, that being said, you must also be incredibly patient. The vast majority of the real estate agents who enter this business enter it on the premise of what they see in content, what they see publicly on Netflix, for example. We do a really good job of showing how glamorous our business is, but no one really sees what goes into it. It's sure, some of these shows, they show some failure moments in time along the way, but really the resilience that you have to develop through patience, that's the thing that really gets lost on so many of us. We're all so urgent to reach success. We're playing a very finite game. Mm-hmm. But you must play what Simon Sinek calls an infinite game. You have to play to stay in it, to stay in the game, not just to win. We're not playing to win. We're playing to sustain, to be here and really make our mark, to create legacy in this business. And you'll reach a certain point in your career where you've realized that you've done just that. And then you'll have an opportunity to go even further. But I would say to you that the biggest mistake that new agents make is they fail to have patience, and they come into the business with a false perspective, and therefore they don't realize what it really takes to succeed. But ultimately, I love what Matthew told me. I've thought about it every day since he said it, is that you have to think big picture, big perspective. You must play big.
Right. I think a lot of people come into this industry with that winning mindset because of what they see on Netflix, everywhere. You know, you see success. Not many people are talking about their failures. Like, I flashed my phone to my friends the other day and I showed them all of my follow-ups. It's just blue, 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 blue. Like, yeah. Blue after blue, no response. I'm like, this is it. Or yes. At least what it looks like in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard Ryan tell multiple stories of follow-ups that carried on for years before they came to fruition.
Yeah.
And some of them are just like that. Listen, there are going to be times where you hit a layup, where you make a deal that feels easy. But most of the time, it's really not like that.
Right.
It's really, really not like that. You have to push, and you will reach a point in time where you'll be in a rhythm. I don't know. I don't like to use the word consistency so much because our business is very inconsistent because every deal is different. Every buyer is different. Every personality is different. Every seller has a different reason, different take. You know, there's so much that we have to manage emotionally by way of personality that consistency is not really the word I'm looking for. It's more just rhythm. It's flow with the work. You know what to do. You know how to answer all the questions.
Right. And I feel like that's also why we have this focus, at least on our team, of building these relationships, not just leads. It's really, really relationship focused, hospitality focused.
Yes, we must always lead with connection.
Yeah.
That's part of playing that infinite game, is making it that it's not evident that we're just trying to get a deal done, because it really radiates off the skin when you come into the conversation with that mindset. You really want to be focused on connection. You know?
And you've seen me do it, you know, like it's tough and
really tough.
Like,
you're how many months in at this point? 3 months.
A little over 3.
Yeah. So you're like really, really, really early stage. You haven't even remotely scratched the surface yet,
no.
but you're doing great, and you're pushing, and you'll see that it's going to pay off. But listen, I tell most people that it takes 2 to several years to really make a real impact and make real money in this business. And that doesn't mean that there isn't the opportunity to do a few big deals or have a few good lucky strikes along the way.
Right.
But to create a business that's really thriving and to have a network that's feeding you, you have to really be going hard and heavy for 2 to 4 years just to get there. It takes time.
But it's like it is building a business. So, you know, it's really not different than anything else. You know, anybody else who started a business would say the same thing.
Absolutely. It's building a business, and it's building a lot of muscle along the way.
Yeah, for sure. So as you know, I've been going heavy on expired listings as a form of my lead gen. And I had been waiting to hear back from a potential client on an exclusive listing. And I got the news this week that they decided to go with a different realtor, which was obviously really disappointing to hear. But as you taught me, I should always have multiple things in the pipeline, and this was just a learning experience for me.
Yeah.
So in lieu of this week's pit, please tell me about a time you thought a deal was really, really, really going to happen that ultimately ended up just completely falling through.
That's a good one.
You can think about it.
Well, the first one that comes to mind was a townhouse that we sold on 61st Street between 3rd and Lex. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous house, and it's definitely up there in like the top 5 favorite properties I've ever worked on. But we were listed for quite a while, for about a year. And we had a buyer come in who took us so deep into the process, you know, to the point where there was a contract out for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And they came forward with just a very silly excuse as to why they were walking away from this deal. And that was a moment where, like, I really thought this deal was done and in the bag. And then when it failed, it was like one of those brick wall failures, you know? Yeah, because you reach a point where not only are you looking forward to, the end result here, the commission, the income that really helps, take care of everything that's going on.
Of course.
It's that deal, for that deal to just disappear and to fade so suddenly like that. I mean, I suppose to some degree we were prepared for this after 2 weeks of having a contract out, but nothing really prepares you for it. Right. But that being said, listen, I genuinely believe that everything happens the way it's supposed to. And the same day that deal failed, I received a phone call from what would be the future buyer. Yeah. And not only did that future buyer come and see the house that very same week, but they paid $2.5 million more than the contract we had out. And they closed in 2 weeks, and they paid cash, and the seller didn't even have to move furniture out of the house. Wow. So it was like, just when you thought that, just when you feel this sort of collapse of the world around you from a big deal like this, is just as quickly everything could come back and really come back to,
It's a crazy
to
story.
Double what it was supposed to be. It's nuts.
Yeah, that's a really, really crazy story. I mean, it doesn't always happen that way, though. You know what I mean?
Listen, and you're in the situation you're discussing, the situation you're referencing, and again, every situation is different, but it also has to feel right for the person that we're pitching. Yeah. It's like selling homes, buying homes. Again, we lead with connection because it's an emotional business, and there's usually a lot of emotion tied into these decisions. And for one reason or another, someone might just feel like a different person is just better suited or better fitted for them personally. Totally. Not necessarily more or less qualified, just this person gets me or hears me, which is why hospitality is a principle that I press on so much, because if we can help people feel heard and understood and seen, that's really what people want from the person who's going to handle what is most often their most precious asset, or will be their most precious or biggest purchase. Yeah.
Do you feel like after 13 years of experience, are the signs there? Like, do you feel it when, you're working on a deal or you're working on a pitch? Like, do you see the signs now? Like, oh, I have a good feeling about this one, and it ultimately ends up working out, or oh, I have a feeling this isn't going to work out. Like,
sometimes I think intuition is tied into it at times, but at the same time, I feel like I'm naturally an optimist. So, and that my optimism can get ahead of me quite often. So
I'm the same way.
Yeah, it's for me, it's like, a lot of times the situation feels good, but I love giving the benefit of the doubt.
For sure.
But yes, there are, instincts, and, you, like a muscle, it gets stronger and stronger the more deals you see and the more interactions you have with clients and potential ones.
Yeah. I also think just being optimistic in general, like we're in sales, like that's a good way to be.
You have to be optimistic to also stay in this business. Right. You have to be.
Because you have to pick yourself up over and over again, no matter what stage you are in your career.
Yeah. And you have to do what you love. Yeah. It's like, and that doesn't necessarily mean real estate transactions. It's just real estate, or this business is a business that should be aligned with you as a person. And it's very moldable, it's very malleable, so it's you can create a big business centered around what you're truly passionate about. That becomes like your main source of lead generation. Right. I think you're still figuring that out.
I'm for sure still figuring that out, and
that's part of the process. Right now, what you're just learning to do is work hard. Yeah. Because that's a big part of it. But once you find your rhythm on the basis of what you love, then the work doesn't feel like work anymore. Right. It just feels like your life and just what you got to do.
Right. 100%. I mean, right now where I'm at, when I look at my calendar as a whole at the beginning of the week, I do want to see a lot of my hours allocated towards lead gen. Like I do want to get comfortable with the cold calls. I want to get comfortable with, everything client facing. And I feel like that's important to me right now. And as time kind of goes on, and maybe, 6 months in or whatever it is, I do need to find, what is that passion of mine, and how am I going to tie that into the work? Because I see you do it, and I see you succeed doing it, like you are a creative person, and you need to bring that into your business. That's what revs your engine. That's what keeps you going. And for me, it's like, well, I don't know what that is. How do I figure that out?
Yeah, it just takes time and it takes discovery. It took me like three years
Wow.
to figure out the thing. About 3 years into the business, I was like struggling to stay inspired and questioning my place in it. And then something clicked in me, and I was working with a coach, a strategist at the time, who I still work with and am very close with. But it was like early in the stages of my work with her that I realized that my creativity has always been my biggest strength. The thing that I always like loved the most about myself was my creativity, or my ability to teach myself something, whether it be music or cooking or anything. And I usually kind of take that as far as it goes in sort of anything. And there's so many like little and even weird examples along the way and along the course of my life. And I had happened to have like taken a little interest into video making. And I like chopped together a documented vlog of my week, 1 week. This was like towards the end of 2015. And I showed this video to Carmen, to my coach, and I showed it to her, and I said, listen, like, what do you think of this? This was like my week. It's going to be like the first week of the year. And she looked at this and she goes, okay, you need to make more of this. And it was a shitty video, but she saw already like how it could evolve. And she asked me like, what kind of frequency to make these do you think you can handle? I said, I think I can commit to doing one a week, like a weekly vlog. Like the biggest vloggers on YouTube were doing dailies. Like Casey Neistat was doing dailies. Like that is total beast mode, like total beast mode. But that was his life, was making videos. I still had to sell real estate.
Right.
So I decided that for 1 year I would document every week, and then every Sunday I would like chop together a vlog. And it just evolved and blew up in a way that it just created all this opportunity for me, opened up a tremendous amount of doors. It elevated my pitch to be able to say that I can use these skills to help sell your property faster and really like create stories in all the properties I was selling, and have moments where I can see my vision and my ideas realized. It was very, very fulfilling. It was like very rewarding internally. I think me personally, I also draw like a certain measure of fulfillment when someone appreciates the work I do.
For sure.
I like that. I really, really like that. So that's kind of always been me. My strength has always lived inside of my creativity. And I've chosen, the way I think about my business, the way I think about my brand, is that I like to be that bridge between creativity and hospitality. But yeah, there's like, it's like endless examples of of how I try to deploy my creativity and just like become really good at something random or something that requires a creative touch.
Right.
So.
And your vlogging, that came before real estate was really all over social media and kind of came alongside social media, correct?
It was very early, and I, at the time I was the only person in our business that was vlogging on YouTube.
Ryan wasn't even vlogging.
No, and I have him on my vlog making fun of me for vlogging, but yeah, we laugh about that. But yeah, and I the idea for vlogging came because I was a really big Casey Neistat fan, big fan. And I was also a really big Gary Vee fan at the time. And I knew that whatever vlog I made, I wanted to like meld these styles.
Right.
This more like, fun and fast pace vibe of Casey's vlog, and Gary's like sort of like dramatic documenting of his day to be inspirational and to sort of touch the heart with his message. And that was like the inspiration I drew from. And to be honest, a lot of ways I still draw from that inspiration.
Yeah.
But the time is going to come, and it's going to happen before you know it, that you are going to realize what is the thing that really makes you tick, that you're really passionate about. That's what's going to keep you in real estate.
Yeah.
It might be real estate. You might just love this business. There are those who just really love this business, that are really profoundly good at it because of their passion for the substance of the work itself.
Or the product.
Yeah, or the product.
For me.
Yeah.
I've always been into interiors and the luxury space. It could just be the product.
Yeah, so that then you have to figure out how that thing that makes you special creates value for your audience, for your buyers, for your sellers, and especially for your ideal client. It sounds to me like if your passion is design, then your ideal client is someone who also does.
Who appreciates that,
Who
right?
appreciates that and also probably needs help with that.
Yeah.
You know?
Like big picture type of thing. Like not just the selling part, the designing part, kind of tying that all together.
Yes.
Interesting. I don't think I've seen that done before, though. Like kind of bringing in, I mean, I know we work with interior, like, you know, especially in new development, that's something that we definitely...
I think you'd be surprised. I think design is a pretty common passion that gets deployed in the work. Because like you said, it ties into falling in love with the product.
Right.
So yeah, I've been in so many showings where brokers give very good, concerted opinions about design and what's possible within a space, especially an empty home. I'm not particularly like... I think I could throw together a few good ideas, but walking into an empty space, you know, I like the vision doesn't just jump right out at me.
Yeah,
you know?
No, there's most people are that way. Like my mother's like that. She'll walk into a space, she'll be like, "Oh, this is awful. It's brutal. It's not no potential." It's like, you know, I see it.
Yeah, you can extract potential.
Yeah.
That I do know is that. I've seen some pretty creative, amazing things happen with small spaces.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things are possible. And if you can be the person who creates a solution for people by way of design, then it could be that like every challenging apartment that exists on the market becomes yours. The ones that are unique, that really are not cookie cutter.
And there's plenty of those in the city.
Yeah.
Plenty.
Yeah. In this city, there certainly are.
Yeah. So being new to the industry, what advice do you have for me in terms of gaining my network's trust and representing them through one of life's biggest decisions that they'll ever have to make, whether it's to buy or to sell their real estate?
How do you earn your client's trust? Do the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, just always do the right thing. And it's always the right thing to do the right thing.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, just be good. You know, lead with connection.
Right.
Really, it's centered in that. Show the client that you care. Do the right thing. Be assertive. Be relentless. Follow up all the time. Never be afraid to lose it because you don't even have it yet.
Right.
You know, but at the root of it is just be there for them. Help them feel seen and heard and understood. Read that book on reasonable hospitality.
Yeah.
It's a game changer. It really helps you understand the impact of just helping someone feel like you're with them.
Right.
You know.
And throw the sale out the door. So just like...
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a skill to be able to keep it in the back of your mind, but not let it radiate off your skin.
Right.
You know. They already know that you want to make a deal.
Of course.
You know, whoever you're working with knows that you want to put food on the table. They know. And a lot of, many a times they will try to chop you down in commission and try to undermine your value, and you'll have to be prepared for that. But ultimately, you have to show the client that you represent them. Right. That you're there to help them make this very important, big decision. And even in the context of a rental, our job has become far less about helping people find a home than it is about facilitating the process by bringing it over the line, and helping them not overpay and not get screwed. Right. Or even in this climate, just successfully purchase a home or rent an apartment. I mean, it's impossible to get in one, it's really crazy these days. It is. Yeah. It is. It's the Wild West out there. It really is. Yeah. And that just goes back to agent relationships, which I feel like has just become, over the years, more and more important. Just in terms of, nurturing that relationship and being able to represent your clients properly. Yeah. And that's, and then the other bucket is also to be good to your colleagues. Really be good to your colleagues. Yeah. I think that this business is far more competitive than it really needs to be. Yeah. It's fine to compete for the product, for the opportunity. Right. But like once you have it and then a potential deal comes to the table, to take a shark-like approach to negotiating, an overconfident or aggressive approach to negotiating as opposed to a candid approach.
Yeah.
Tell me what your client needs in order for him to make this deal. Let me see how close I can get you.
Right.
Of course, if an asking price is completely outside of reality, you'll have to make that case.
Right.
But that being said, like you have an honest conversation, and you work with your colleagues, the people on the other side of the deal sheet collaboratively. You have to really take care of those relationships because, and I heard Ryan say this, he was having a conversation with another CEO at another brokerage because they were having a dispute over this. And it was like, listen, clients come and go, but the relationships that we have with the brokers on the other side of the transaction, those are actually the relationships that last forever. And if you don't nurture those relationships, if you don't do the right thing there,
it's an awful thing.
Yeah, you won't be able to make deals with those people. You're going to burn a lot of bridges.
Right. Right.
So, and that's how you develop respect in the industry. That's how you develop a good reputation. That's something that I put a lot of thought into over the last several years. And I'm like, I don't talk about what I'm proud of a lot, but I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
That I know that I can have good, respectful dialogue with any broker in this industry.
Right. Wow. And I think SERHANT does a very good job at just being collaborative. Like I can speak to the younger agents. Like I've already made so many, friends in the office that are always checking in, seeing if I need anything, eager to help me with whatever it is I'm working on. I have you as my team lead, but I also have a lot of friends that I've made.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know that SERHANT is technically not equipped to take on new individual agents.
Yeah.
But I happen to think that they would be great for that. Like if they had a real program that's created for new agents that runs them through a process to then be able to leave the nest and go do their thing. If they want to join a team, they can, or they can be individual with a certain set of guidelines until they reach certain thresholds, and then eventually set them on a course to get their broker's license, to start their own teams, like a start to finish sort of laid out process. And I think it'll happen because they have Pro and they have the Sell It programs that are also really focused on real estate agents. Because I love this. I love mentoring new agents and helping people realize this. I think the mission for me is rooted in just wanting to, it took me a long time to reach success in real estate. And I feel like if I could accelerate that a little bit for the people that I work with, and that's very rewarding for me internally. But I think SERHANT would be great for this type of mission.
Yeah. Yeah. I had an opportunity to join a company kind of as floating, just doing my thing. And they had expressed that they kind of hand down rental leads and stuff to help us start transacting and getting that going. But I think for me personally, I was looking to join a team, and I do think that it makes a huge difference in terms of, if your team lead is setting goals like you do for me. So we convene at the start of every week, this is what you will accomplish by the end of the week. I think it really does help drive you in the right direction.
Well, the point of that is to get you used to creating disciplines for yourself.
Right.
It's not for me, to some degree it is for me because I want to create earners,
Exactly.
But really it's for you, you know, you are going to evolve in this business. You won't be on a team forever. Right. You just won't. Eventually you're going to want to go deeper and bigger, and you're going to want to make a bigger bet on yourself.
Right.
For me, I'm trying to help you get there on the timeline that you want, to support your growth. I'm not playing this game to try and keep you. I want to build you and empower you.
Right.
Again, there's plenty of business for everybody. I'm not worried you're going to take anything. Right. I think no two people cook the same dish the same way.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm saying. We don't have to be so competitive as real estate agents. People ask me questions, strategic questions, resources, referrals. I'm open with all of that stuff.
Yeah.
There's no maybe there's a few things I keep close to the chest, like maybe some of my video editing style and things like that. Otherwise, like strategically, I'll share anything.
Right, because it'll translate differently depending on who's using those tools or taking your advice.
Right. I wouldn't like share data. Yeah. Like I wouldn't share my expired list with someone.
Of course not.
But at the same time, if someone needs help with strategy and how to get to a successful place, then
it's all out there. I mean, everything's out in the open. It's a matter of putting the time aside to do it.
And that's another thing. That's another reason why the that 87% fail after before 5 years, because they don't create those disciplines and they don't set aside the time, and eventually they just get burnt out. They get sick of the work. That's why you have to do what you're really passionate about inside of the work.
Right. And that was like a whole new thing for me. Like, I'm not organically a disciplined person. I'm not. I don't have a routine, like I always joke, my friends are like, what's your like morning routine? Like, tell us what's your skincare? I'm like, it's different every day. I don't really follow a routine.
So then it's probably important. I would strongly suggest that you develop a routine that's not tied into this business. Something that helps you create discipline. One thing, a great one, is like a workout regimen, so like I have trouble with my own disciplines, but I'm like on the book 3 times a week to work out at 5:30 in the morning. I don't always make it to all my sessions, and that's my exercise of discipline. Of commitment, of integrity, really.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely still something I'm figuring out in terms of like my week and how that looks and structuring it. I mean, it's a lot of the same right now, a lot of the same. So as work starts picking up, as things start getting crazier, as I build my client, it's a matter of organizing that and tying that all into 1 week,
Yeah.
But
there's not enough hours in the day. There never really will be.
Yeah.
But, go hard and heavy on this stuff now, because when you do get busy, if you don't have these disciplines in place, you'll crumble.
100%. 100%. So right now at 28 years old, my network is gearing up to purchase their first property. How do we, as realtors, help our buyers, especially first-time buyers, stand out in this competitive market?
Stand out to our buyers? Give them a reason to work with us, you mean?
How do we have our buyers stand out?
So like to the deal.
Yeah, it's like a first-time buyer.
Yeah, so it's a good question, because first-time buyers are generally living in the budget of anywhere up to, let's say, $1.5 or $2 million, anywhere in that realm.
Yeah.
Depending on whether they're doing this themselves or they have a little help from the family, which is very common in New York City.
Yeah.
But I think that I've always found that being really, really well presented when it comes to something like an offer is really important. To be really organized, to be really thorough. So when you present an offer, it shouldn't just be like a phone call, this is what my client's going to offer. It shouldn't just be a 2 or 3 liner, this is what my client's going to offer. It really should be like, you want to give them something that they can forward. They can forward to their client.
Okay.
That, that, like, I always think about this when I write a great email. When I write an offer email, and I'm writing it to the listing agent, is that I'm going to give them something that all they have to do is press forward.
Right.
You're making their life easier too. And that's generally a beautifully well-written email that's organized with the offer details, with a bio on your client, with whatever the required attachments are, whether that be a financial statement, proof of funds, a pre-approval letter for financing. A lot of first-time buyers are financing, and they're making their purchases contingent on financing. So listen, that's also, in order to make that, to avoid that being unattractive to the client, it's important that the offer is well presented.
Right.
That they see the client for who they are, which is, regardless of whether it's contingent on financing or not, they're a qualified purchaser, and they're represented by a good, thorough, organized agent who's going to keep the same organization principles when it comes to presenting this application to the board.
Right.
Like, they could see by looking at a beautiful, well-written email that you're going to care for the entire process. The seller has to also have confidence in the buyer's agent, because they have to have confidence that they are going to treat this process, in a thorough way, in an organized way,
Yeah.
and is going to make a well-presented case to a co-op board.
Right.
You
Ease
know?
of doing business. It's
Sure.
exactly like what we talked about before, just the other agent on the other side of the deal sheet. You
Yeah.
want to work with them.
Yeah, of course. And listen, in that price point, there's a lot of competition. It's also the Wild West.
Yeah.
Things disappear and things get lost to cash
Yeah.
buyers all the time, 100%. But you do your best for your
Right.
client. You do your best. You make a strong case. You make a well-presented case. And, once you assemble that, then you also focus on your connection with the listing agent. Remember to create that collaborative connection to help them understand, like, I want to get this deal done. Let me know how we can go about this creatively if needed.
Right.
This person's very qualified, and I know you might get another offer. You might have another offer on the table, but I'm telling you, this person loves this home, which means they will see this through to closing.
Right. They're committed. They want it more than anything. Right. Yeah, no, I'm kind of at the phase where, like, I think I foresee myself working with a lot of first-time buyers in the near future. So it's definitely something I've been thinking about, especially in a climate where, or in a market where, there's a lot of cash offers going around right now, and that's who's winning.
Yeah, because interest rates are still pretty high, and so people who have cash have power, and people know that, and they'll get the best deal.
Yeah.
So I mean, ideally, if you're working with a cash buyer, that'll make things a lot easier for you.
For sure.
And I'm sure you'll run into a few along the way, but you'll also run into a few that just need financing.
Right.
And listen, I worked with a buyer not too long ago. She was actually a guest on this show, but we lost 5 or 6 deals along our journey. Yeah, and it's very common. When you're contingent on financing and you're working in a competitive price point, it's very common. You lose a bunch. We were offering all over town. So eventually one of them hits, so you have to be prepared for that.
Right.
You have to be and the truth is, you should prepare your client for that. I think that's another good piece of advice, is that be transparent with the client, with the buyer, that listen, at this price point, it's hard to stand out competitively if we're contingent on financing.
Right.
That being said, we'll be prepared for that. We'll see a lot of options. We'll offer and strike on the ones we like.
Okay.
We won't take too long to think about this because things disappear.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you keep them from burning out? Because I'm putting myself in their shoes, and if that's a hit after a hit, you get excited. You start envisioning your life there. You start envisioning it all there.
Treat the process, unless they are in an urgent position, treat the process with patience.
Right.
And help them understand it. It might take some time, but if you're patient, if you're not in a rush to make this happen, then let's take our time with the process so that you don't get burnt out.
Right.
One time I had a buyer come in from Australia to see like $5-6 million options, and they were like, oh, we're willing to look all throughout the city. And I was like, maybe a year into the business, and it's like, okay. So I took them to see, like, it was like 14 options in one day of like $5-6 million homes. And this was like 12 or 10 or 11 years ago. And back then that money took you pretty far.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of good inventory on the market. And they just had such an information overload that they just couldn't make a decision. They just got on the plane and went home.
And they didn't end up purchasing.
No.
It was too much.
It was too much. It was an overload of information. And I think that happens.
Yeah.
So you do want to be also selective with what you show people to some degree.
Right. Or at least break it up and
let them send you things.
Right.
Remember, the values change. It's not so much about finding the home as it is about facilitating the process. So let them send you what they love.
Right. Right. Let's talk about townhouses for a minute.
My favorite.
Yes, that I know. So we very recently listed a brand new townhouse for 35 East 87th. You've sold all different types of product, from penthouses to beach homes, but what makes a townhouse different? So what makes the marketing behind the product different? And without spilling all of our secrets, what is the best way to capture the right customer for this niche lifestyle?
Ooh, I mean, it depends on the house.
Yeah,
it depends where it is, of course. But
of course.
Listen, I love New York City. I really, really love New York City. I feel a profound connection to this city, regardless of whatever we hear in the media and regardless of whatever, for all its faults, it's got a lot more bad years in its history than good ones anyway.
Yeah.
A townhouse, in my opinion, my humble opinion,
Mm-hmm.
is the best investment you can make in New York City in the context of residential real estate.
Why?
Because when you buy a townhouse, you're buying a piece of this island. Listen, New York City, everyone knows it's the most valuable city in the world as it relates to real estate. Even if the numbers ebb and flow it on the chart here and there, everyone knows that New York City real estate is like, it's the king of it all.
Of course.
So buying a piece of the land, I think is just an incomparable investment.
Yeah.
In that context. And then as it relates to the house itself, listen, I grew up in the suburbs, just like you. So I love a house. I love the composition of a home. I love multiple floors.
Yeah.
I love that lifestyle, and that very much has become my dream and ambition for quite some time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if I could put like a pot at the end of the rainbow, that's what it would be for me. That's my goal.
Yeah.
And I love working on them. I think that I oftentimes vibe well and relate well to the buyer of a townhouse because I myself wish to be one at some point in time. And so I feel like I can passionately address all of the good things about a great townhouse. And I think that lifestyle of it is just nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. That was actually the first townhouse I've ever been in, the one that we just listed. And it really blew me away.
That makes me happy because that's a beautiful house.
It's a beautiful
That's a really beautiful house. I've sold some dumpy townhouses.
I know. And you warned me. You said, you were like, they don't all look like this.
No, they don't. This is a special one.
Yeah, it really is. And just like the little details, how the family lives and the lifestyle, the little things that you would share about the product. Like, I find it very intriguing and very interesting. And I could see that it's a very authentic passion that you have for this product.
Yeah, and the more of them you sell, the more you can like realize all this stuff. Even like when I listened to Ryan, when he was walking through this townhouse with us, and he sold tons of townhouses, the way he like immediately realizes the uses of different spaces, like how different spaces would be activated. It's like, oh, you got your wife here taking care of her daily business. You got homework happening over here while the cooking in the kitchen, and this is happening. And it's like he himself lives in a townhouse.
I was going to say he's done it.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's really, really cool. And I really love helping people like try to envision what their life would be like in a townhouse, and it's really not for everybody.
It's not.
Usually townhouses take a lot of showings before you reach, the buyer who really falls in love, because a lot of the time buying a townhome becomes, just the product itself becomes the major point of consideration. Do I want to live in a townhouse versus a building with service and amenities?
Right.
The townhouse we sold on 61st Street sold for $16.3 million. But with that money, you could buy something pretty lavish, whether it's on Billionaires Row or whether it's on Fifth Avenue or whether it's on Park Avenue, whether it's at the new Armani building, which just recently sold out on Madison Avenue.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that $16.3 million can buy you. So how important is townhouse living to you? Do you want to live in a house and potentially sacrifice service? Do you want to bring your garbage out to the street a couple times a week? Do you want to have frequent visitors? Do you want to have frequent visits from an exterminator to make sure that roaches and rats are not getting into your house? I mean, that's New York City.
Right.
But if you're good with that stuff, then living in a townhouse is really living in a proper New York City home.
It really is.
And man, there are some historic and legendary townhouses. I've seen some gorgeous ones that I haven't, had my hand in selling, but just seeing the character of some of these homes, townhomes, like the story jumps out at you, really jumps out at you. At least to me it does.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it also comes down to like, when you think of New York City, you think of like this view and this skyline and skyscrapers.
That's
so
great
it's
too.
It's a different client. It's a different customer, Like some people come in and they're like, I want the penthouse anywhere. Just take me to a penthouse, So different product.
Yeah, I mean, to some people, like the view of the skyline is everything.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's someone who never lived in New York and now they're in New York and they're reminded of their success by looking at that skyline every single day.
Totally.
But I find that a townhouse buyer quite frequently is someone who already lived in New York.
Right. They're just,
depending on the house, of course.
Yeah.
In the case of the 61st Street townhouse, it was sold to someone from Europe, a very wealthy individual from Europe,
Wow.
who has homes all over the world and appreciates good quality homes.
Right.
And saw the value in this one. But yeah, and townhouses can be tough too. That one was tough. Like that one I showed over 50 times.
Yeah.
50.
Yeah.
50 over the course of a year.
Wow.
And it had its challenges. Like, for example, it sat on the bike lane. So if a house sits on the bike lane, you can't have loading and unloading with cars. You can't pull your car up in front of the house if you're taking a bunch of things out of it. That's like a huge challenge for people, to get over that.
Right.
Also, being on 61st Street, there's a lot of traffic coming off the bridge, the 59th Street Bridge, crossing over to Fifth Avenue.
Right.
So it can be tough, and you have to sell your way around those things.
Yeah. What did the conversations look like with the seller? When you're, you mentioned that it was listed for a year, right? Yeah,
and it was listed for 6 months with another broker before that.
Oh, there you go. So what do those conversations look like?
He gave us 2 extensions.
Okay.
Two extensions, which
yeah.
Then the real question becomes is how do you keep them? How do you retain them when you're not producing the result that they ultimately want?
Yeah.
And that's with communication.
Right.
You must communicate effectively and frequently with your clients. You must bring them into the fold honestly about what you're doing, what's going on. You must also maintain enthusiasm to the client. You must show them that you still believe in this, that you believe in this process, and that you're pushing with everything you've got to bring a deal to the table.
Yeah.
If you start lessening the frequency in which you communicate with the client, they will naturally 100% believe that you are less invested in it than you were before.
100%.
Because most of the time, the client's not going to just buy. You have to lower the price and that's it. You need to show them that you're doing everything, even though the price is where it's at. And then once you've aligned them with what's going on, then they will be on the same page as you when the conversation becomes about potentially reducing the price.
Right.
So for me, strategically, one of the things that I think is most important about being a listing agent is regular, weekly, unbreakable frequency contact with your client to update him on the status of what's going on with the listing. Not just feedback from the showings, but how many people are clicking on it, looking at it, viewing it on a daily basis. How many saves does the listing have on StreetEasy, which is the most important platform? This is information that's important because if those numbers are not there and the marketing is good and solid, you're getting the clicks, but you're not getting the showings, you're not getting the traffic that you anticipated or that you wanted. Your client knows that because you're keeping him updated every week.
Right.
So the client, you have to over-communicate, really over-communicate.
Yeah.
The client will never fault you for that.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like as I go through these expired listings, it's, all this ties together. The
communication is like I'm telling you, all these people on that expired list, the vast majority of them, their biggest problem is a lack of communication from their real estate agent. And if you address that pain point in your cold call off the bat, it'll get you closer.
Right.
Like you want to try to address as soon as possible the fact that our clients hear from us all the time.
All the time, exactly. I mean, so many, it's sad. You go after this listing, you want it, you feel passionate about it, you want to sell this home. And, time goes by and you lose that, they're losing the passion.
Yes.
And that client sees that. They feel that. Every week that goes by and they don't hear from you.
Yeah, and they've got to get this done. They want to sell this. So they can't just, they're not going to just like sit there and wait for you and wait for showings to come through the door. Like they want to see that you're taking proactive measures to get things done.
Right. Totally. This is actually my last question.
Fantastic.
Okay. So.
This has been nice.
Yeah. It's great. Our job is 24/7, so it's really hard to plan personal commitments or travel in advance. What are some things that you do to stay connected and hit your personal milestones?
Listen, I think that your life and your work need to kind of harmonize in the business. There isn't like people. I hate when I see a real estate agent who like has 2 different Instagram pages. Like we have a team page, so that's not exactly what I mean because we have like a brand page.
Right.
But like like, I don't need an Ariel Sassoon personal page and an Ariel Sassoon real estate page.
There's just one Ariel Sassoon.
Yeah, that's it. Like, you're not supposed to balance work and life. You're supposed to harmonize those two things.
Of course.
So you know when you need a break, when you need to step away from the work. You do need to be prepared enough that you can. Like, you need to put the things you need in place to make that okay.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, I know I have a team that I can rely on.
Yeah.
I know that if I was away tomorrow, I know I can call you to handle a showing at a property if needed. I know that I can rely on you or Maya to handle something that's needed. That's like really important to me, is that I feel that sense of loyalty and that sense of trust with the people I work with. For you, at an early stage, maybe you'll find yourself wanting to take on a partner at some point in time. But for now, you're on a team and you have people around you that can support you. And you should feel comfortable to know that when you're doing, like when you're going to go on your honeymoon soon, you'll feel comfortable enough knowing that if something comes up, you've got a team you can rely on. Yeah.
I mean, I think right now at the stage that I'm at, it is a bit of a struggle. It's like time away from the city feels like huge missed opportunity.
To some degree it is, yes. When you're taking your foot off the gas, you're not producing. But at the same time, being in a good headspace, having good mental health, part of that means like feeding the soul with things like travel and time spent with our loved ones and our children and all that. That stuff's important. That's what keeps that's what keeps you in check. Right.
And that's what keeps you, in the game and hungry, and it keeps you going.
So you trust that everything's going to work out.
Of course.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be, of course, like, you shouldn't be taking 30 vacation days a year. You have to be very calculated with this stuff. Yeah. Well, listen, fortunately, our business does afford us a bit of freedom and a bit of the ability to handle things from a faraway place if we really need to. Yeah. So I think you just have to go with your gut, follow your instinct.
Yeah.
You can't. One thing that a recent guest on this podcast also said is that, because I asked him, is entrepreneurship teachable? And he said that mindset is not teachable. You can't teach someone how to have the right mindset. Either they have the mindset that will push through, that'll give them the ambition that they need and the wherewithal they need to get to where they need to go, or you don't. Sometimes it takes like a traumatic life event to shift the mindset. Like the mindset can shift through some sort of event or something, but you can't teach someone like, this is how you have to think about the world. Like, if you want it, you're going to go for it. Like, at the end of the day, we eat what we kill.
100%.
So if you want it, you're going to get after it, and you'll know when it's okay for you to take your foot off the gas a little bit, or take a break, or step away completely if you need to. You'll know when the time is right for your next big decisions in life. There may come a time in a couple of years from now where you're like, okay, maybe real estate itself isn't for me, but maybe I'm going to take what I learned here and I'm going to apply it to my next big thing. And you'll realize how important this chapter was to you. So keep yourself open. Keep yourself curious. And keep yourself wanting to go deeper and deeper into the work.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. And I do think that was a great last question and a great way to end this. I mean, that was inspiring and beautiful and
perfect.
Just beautiful.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Write that down.
Yeah. Noted.
All right. Well, this was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. You're doing great. Keep pushing.
Thank you.
Keep believing in yourself. Whatever's meant to happen will happen. Just do your best.
Yes. I'll always do that.
Okay.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
That was fun.
That was good, right?